Hello, so I chose to show how I use manipulatives to add integers. I am Carissa Ketterling, and this is something that I have found to be super effective when trying to create some deep pathways that students are able to recall when solving. So the guiding question was, how can we help students understanding when introducing them to adding integers? The need. So this is really nice because this can be really low maintenance. It can be just stuff that you already have. For my demonstration, I chose two items that were just easy to differentiate between. So I used some green chips and some red chips. You could honestly use like pennies and use heads and tails or really anything, which is super nice that it doesn't have to be something that's hard to find. I just put some different addition problems on note cards. You could come up with them as you go, or you could have them prepared. So I had varying difficulty, starting with easiest and working our way to challenging. So the why for this is I was working with a 7th grade remedial math class, and I talk about this a little bit in my example where students had me in the morning and then they would have me in the afternoon for regular 7th grade math. So we needed something that was a little bit more hands-on for adding integers, as students were really struggling with the actually visualizing it and understanding when to move left on the number line, when to move right on the number line. So I wanted something a little bit more concrete. So adding integers is definitely a difficult topic that has many misconceptions. And I just made a little note, as suggested by Woodward and Howard. It is important we build conceptual knowledge of the task at hand. So I would recommend using some sort of representational system. And I think anyone who has taught math knows that for a lot of kids, having those manipulatives makes a huge difference. Even for myself, to understand the why. Like, why are we doing this? Why can we take and make pairs with a positive and a negative integer? So I like using this method. So I'm just going to show you the video of the strategy that I recorded earlier while I was doing it, and you can just listen and go through as I work through a couple of problems.
Good morning. I am going to show an example of how I like to teach adding integers. When I have used this, it primarily has been with a remedial 7th grade math class. How it works is they have a class called Math Foundations in the morning, and then in the afternoon they go to their regular 7th grade English math class, but they have already had exposure to the topic being taught. And so they have had time to practice, to review, and just kind of get to do the hands-on part more so than they would have in just 7th grade English as a class. So, this has proved to be really successful with them and really help them visualize what it's going to look like to add integers, whether they're negative or positive, and what to kind of expect. So I have just picked up a couple of different chips. Green is going to be my positive integers. Red is going to be my negative. I have decided, just based on the connotation we have with those colors, green usually means positive, good. Red, negative, not as good. So that's what we're going with. So how I would do this is I would give each student a pile of chips, and then I would start with something fairly simple, just so we can actually practice the process of adding with the chips. So I would start with something like 4 plus 5. I know you're thinking, okay, that's pretty simple, but I want for them to understand what we're doing here. So I'm just going to move these out of the way a little bit so you have a better visual. I would start with my 4 positive. Okay, I look, we know adding. We're going to be putting more. So we have 5 more positives, so I pull down my 5. I would explain to students kind of ahead of time, like, we know if I have a positive 1 and a negative 1, if If you put those together, what are we going to get? We're going to get a 0, right? So we can count those as pairs. So if you get a red or a green pair, you can take that out. That's not going to be working in the final sum or what we're adding. So I don't have any red, so I know that I have 9 green chips. So I have an answer of 9. It is positive because I only have green chips. I don't have a negative integer down in this, so I know as well that it's going to be positive. So that would be an example. Then I would move on to something a little bit more challenging. Something like we're going to start with positive integers, but then we're going to add some negative integers in. So I'm going to start with my positive 6. And I have 6 positive. And I'm going to add 3 negative integers. So 1, 2, 3. So like I talked about with making partners, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to put these right here. I have this pair, this pair, this pair. And I'm actually going to move them out of the way. And so I know that I am left with 3 positive integers that I can't pair up with a negative. So I know my answer is positive 3. I know that because it's green, which tells me it's positive, and I have 3 left. Okay? Then we're going to move on to something a little bit more challenging. I am going to start with, we'll start with a negative one. So some of them I just grab the green automatically because that's what they have been doing, is starting with green and then adding red in. But I really want them to notice, no, it's not a positive 4, it's a negative 4. It's a negative integer, so I'm going to pull down my 4 chips. And I'm going to add, so I'm going to put more, and I'm going to put negative 3. So we're pulling from the reds again. You know, we might have the discussion, can we make any pairs with any positive integers? No. Okay, so we know that this is going to be our sum. Is it red? Yeah, okay. So what does that tell us? Well, it's going to be negative. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Negative 7 would be our answer. And then just one more as an example, 3. So we'll start again with positive, and 8 red, which is kind of a lot. So we have our 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, we can start making those pairs. Okay, we aren't going to use those anymore. I'm going to pull them over here. How many are we up with? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is it positive 5? You could talk about, no, it's not green, it's not positive 5. We know, since it's red, it is going to be negative 5. So that is just a little example for how I would set it up with the students. I think it makes for good discussion. Students are able to explain why they took the steps they did. The nice thing, too, is we're able to allow students who made mistakes to share, like, oh, I just naturally thought I always started with green. Well, that wouldn't make sense, right? Because we're not always starting with a positive integer. So just having rich discussions and hands-on is kind of fun in math class as well. So thank you.
So that is how I would set up adding integers using this form of manipulative. And I just wanted to share because I have found a lot of success with it. And it's a really good way to kind of transition into subtracting with integers, those types of next steps. With maybe your regular 7th grade or whatever grade you are teaching this, students, you might not need a ton of practice. maybe you could demonstrate and they would understand. But I know with remedial, this has proven to be really effective. So thank you for your time and thank you for watching.